interview.
Thank you for having me.
Today we're gonna talk about like your culture, your heritage, and like where just all about you.
Okay.
So the first question we have today is where's your family from?
Okay, so my mother's family's from Texas. I can, as far back as I can go, great grandparents and so forth. Everybody on her side of the family is from Texas. My father's family is from the Virgin Islands, but my grandfather was born in the Virgin Islands when it was still owned by Denmark. So his nationality he wrote down on his registration card when he was getting drafted for the war, which was World War II, I think, was Danish. So the Virgin Islands wasn't owned by the U.S. at that time. It was owned by Denmark. So that's as far back as I know on that side, as far as Virgin Islands. And then he also put as far as his ethnicity being Ethiopian. So that much I know, that there's Ethiopian side, as well as I did one of those ancestry DNA things, and it said that I have Nigerian, Democratic Republic of Congo, Mali, and things like that. So that's as far back as I was able to go.
Okay. So where were you born?
I was born in the Boogie Down Bronx.
Okay. So what kind of games did you play growing up?
Okay, so we used to play stickball. I don't know if you know, like sometimes in the street, we would actually take a broomstick or something and we would actually get one of those little red handballs and we would play stickball in the street. We used to, sometimes if we were indoors, we would play jacks, like throwing the jacks down and playing jacks. Are you familiar with jacks?
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, hopscotch, double dutch was a big thing that we played, of course, in the streets, double dutch.
Okay. So let's get to the more harder questions. So growing up, did you embrace your race, your hair, and skin color? Why or why not?
Wow, great questions. So growing up, my hair was a big issue because it was very hard to comb. It hurt. I'd be screaming. So my grandmother put a perm in my hair at a young age, probably too young. So now to this day, I'm wearing wigs. I've worn weaves. I sometimes put extensions in my hair, or there are times when I just wear it completely natural. But my natural hair is a short kind of afro.
Okay. So what do you know about the history of your country, and what are your thoughts on the country now and how it changed over time?
That's a good question. Well, like I said, I'm born in the Bronx, so I'm born here in America. My country has changed a lot with regards to, of course, Black people. With the civil rights movement, a lot of things have improved, but then a lot of things have gone in an opposite direction, because there are a lot of people who didn't like the fact that Black people were getting more rights and getting more voting rights, housing rights, career opportunities. And so those people that didn't like that, because they preferred to have Black people under them in an inferior role, and even to this day, I'm sure I don't have to tell you, looking on the news and stuff, there's still some people out there that would prefer that we didn't have the same rights as far as voting and housing and career and education. So a lot has changed. I was actually born the year that Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. So when a lot of people say, oh, that was so long ago, it's not that long ago for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was in my lifetime. I mean, of course, I was just born. I was a baby, but still, it happened within my lifetime. So these are things that I think about and things that I kind of work towards as far as my own educational pursuits, my own career pursuits, so I can share with other people that, hey, things don't have to be this way. You know, I have a lot of white friends that I love and love me, and I'm blessed to have that. Not everybody has a diversity of friends. You know what I mean? Have a diverse group of friends. I have friends who are Hispanic. I have friends who are Asian. I have friends from all different cultures. But that's also because I was born in New York. Not everybody gets that benefit. if you're born like in Idaho or Omaha or whatever, you may not have that diversity opportunity of friends, and it makes a difference, I think. So there are some good things about this country. I think this last election showed us that more of the people, even if it's just 1% more of the people in this country, want things to change, want things to be more diverse, want things to be more fair for everybody, and so that's encouraging.
Okay. So, how were Black people treated where you were growing up during your youth?
Good question. So I lived in the Bronx until I was 12, and then I moved to Texas because, like I said, my mother's family was from Texas. So I lived in Texas for my high school years and my college years. And overall, I would say 98% of the time, I had a wonderful, relationship with people from other races. I was in a town where it was very few Black people. It was like maybe 3,000 people in the whole town and maybe 50 Blacks in the whole town. So yeah, it's different. Yeah, very, very small town in Texas. Keene, Texas was the name of it. And it was near Fort Worth. And it was a Seventh-day Adventist town. I don't know if you know what Seventh-day Adventist is, but it's a religion where people go to church on Saturday, not Sunday. So all those things kind of made it a little different in that they were trying to, as Christians, to be as friendly and as amicable to all races. But it didn't always work out that way. There were times where some people said some things to me that I had to kind of check them on. And there were sometimes people said some things to me that I didn't check them on, but I just went my way, but I still remember it. So, yeah, it was up and down. I think if I had lived in New York all my life, I probably wouldn't have felt the differences between white and Black as much as I did had I not lived in Texas during my teen years. But it was interesting.
Okay. So, how do you feel about the globalization of your people's traditions?
I think knowledge is key. I think learning about history and learning that we as Black people were not just slaves, that we need to go prior to the enslavement of Black people to know what the history is for all of the countries within Africa. And Africa itself is not a country, it's a continent, the largest continent. These are things that you can only know if you do the research, if you do your own homework on, because it's not going to be taught in schools, unfortunately. Little by little, more diversity is taught in schools, but just not enough. So you have to do your own research. So as far as the globalization and as far as knowing that, it gives me pride to know that there are so many Nigerians, for instance. Like I said, my biggest percentage of my ancestry, ancestry.com results was that I'm Nigerian. And that was exciting. So knowing that there's so many billionaires in Nigeria, I didn't know that, but I had to do my research on it. So there are things that we have to maybe just do some research on to find out about our heritage and about the people who look like us. And knowing that things will get better, but only if there's knowledge, only if we spread the knowledge, share the knowledge, and start doing some research on our own, and then sharing with others what we have.
Okay. So, what is your perspective about the colonization of the indigenous people in your country?
Okay, so that's a big one. So my Texas side of the family, I do have a great-great-grandmother who was Cherokee, Native American.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me to be able to know that, yes, I am of African descent, but I am also of Cherokee descent, and that's a source of pride for me as well. It's been horrible. The way Native Americans have been treated in this country and are still treated in this country is horrible. And that's something that we have to work on. That's something that little by little, this new administration is starting to give people of Native American background a big position in the White House and a big position in government. And that's great that we're starting to see that little by little, but it took so long for that to happen. I think we need to be more aware of what really happened with regards to Christopher Columbus. And instead of calling it Christopher Columbus Day, we need to call it Indigenous Peoples Day. That's a step in the right direction, that at least we are acknowledging that what happened to the Native Americans in this country was horrific. The theft, the rape, go on the list. The same kind of stuff that happened to Africans that came to this country is the same stuff that happened to the Native Americans who were already here. It's like they say Christopher Columbus discovered America. How could you discover something when people are already here? You know what I mean? That's like me coming to your house and saying, "Oh, I discovered your house." Auntie June, I'm here. I already live here. You can't discover something when someone is already there. So, but that's the kind of stuff, little by little, we have to learn with history classes, changing and revamping our history classes so that we can learn what really happened to the people who were already here way before the Mayflower.
Okay, so let's get to the beyond the line questions. Like so this question I've been really thinking about. How would you feel if your heritage was stolen? Would you still be the person that you are today?
Well, my heritage was stolen. The fact that I don't even know my true last name, because think about it, the African names that we would have had, it certainly wouldn't be Williams. That's what my last name is now. It certainly wouldn't be that. It would be something that was more like an Afrocentric type last name. But we don't know those things because when African people were enslaved and brought to this country, they taught us that we had to speak the language they were speaking. They wouldn't allow us to speak our true language. And if you tried to speak your true language, they cut out your tongue unless you spoke American. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that I had to learn on my own, doing my own research and find out, why don't we have our true names? Why don't we have our native tongue? Why don't we speak our native language? Why don't we know for sure what part of Africa we're from? Because they didn't even give us birth certificates. You know what I mean? They literally treated us like cattle. So they wouldn't even, they would change your name. Whatever your name was, they would change it to Bill or Bob or Susie or whatever. You know what I mean? They wouldn't let you keep your true name. So the way I feel about it is I want to be able to at least reclaim that. And as long as I acknowledge that, my name is June. I go by Elizabeth June for my acting and for my performances. My legal name is June Elizabeth Williams. Great name, but that's not my true name. That's why if you read the autobiography of Malcolm X, the reason he changed his name to X is because he knew that Little was not his last name. That wasn't his true last name. And that's why a lot of Muslim people change it to X and so forth. So those are some of the things that you can kind of take control as to what your name is. And some people actually legally change their names, But it's just a matter of knowing who you are on the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, to close off the interview, jumping back to racism, how would you view or feel about a world without racism?
Wow. Wouldn't that be great? I would feel great, but at the same time, I don't want it to ever be a place where people say, "Oh, I don't see color. I don't see race." I do like the fact that we're all different, that we're all different colors, and that we're all different textures. You know what I mean? I don't want to lose that part of it. I just want to make sure that it's equal for everybody. If you can buy a nice house for this amount of money, then I should be able to buy that same nice house for the same amount of money. Don't charge me 3 times more because you don't want a black person in that neighborhood. Things like that. You know what I mean? So those are the kind of things that would make this world beautiful if there was no racism. Racism is not really the problem with skin color. This problem is really the color that makes the most problems is green. It's not about black, it's not about white, it's about money, it's about green. If we got to a place where everybody could make the same equal amount of money for the same type of work, and there was no little behind the scenes trickery as far as getting a bank loan and so forth. Oh, I'm not going to give this black person a bank loan because I don't want them to live in this neighborhood, but I'll give you a bank loan. You know what I mean? Things like that. If we could get around this idea of green and really just be about everybody having equality, that would be the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining my interview today.
Thank you.
And yep, that's all the questions we have for today.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I did not know at all where my aunt came from, and it was very interesting to know even more about her, like a side of her that I didn't know so well. I was so surprised to see what her answers would be to the questions. I know she likes questions like these that I asked her, So I was so surprised to see what her answers would be and how she elaborated with them.